In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced, in honor of the system administrator of this world room and the original unconditional moment that all realities have simulated from, all conditions have simulated from. Welcome everyone. Today I speak in a simulated world that we humans that don't know what's actually going on beyond our own definitions have called it Earth. What has been happening on Earth is a very interesting intelligent activity. And so, how does the moment, or how do the words find the moment? How does intelligence happen? And why would one human being come and share at this time? Why all of humanity will prevent, humans from destroying the earth? We're going to get into this. What's up, guys? Welcome. What can I say? The world is weird, man. It is January 26, 10:20 p.m. I'm in Toronto, Canada. It's the year 2026. I've been around this world. And so, to be honest, 2026 for someone born in 91 is like, we went past the surreal point, at least for me. And so it's a very strange time. Sometimes realities are so overwhelming, the only way you can pass through them is to be silly. But other times, there is an intensity, every human being is different. Every human being's relationship with reality is different. And so I really have access to the world I've experienced so far. And, I guess I should make this clear that as you're listening to me, you're listening to 1 out of 117 billion humans that have ever existed, and 1 out of 8.1 billion humans that currently exist. I am a natural, biological, original human. Even though we're not in the dehumanized age in 2026, I will say it for the future generations, you're listening to an original, natural, biological being, but you're also listening to how the human consciousness, ever since stepping out of the food chain, we are living in an unnatural time. And sorry, not unnatural time. It became unnatural. What does that mean? For the viewers who may not be familiar with sci-fi lingo, we have the concept of a cyborg. A cyborg is pretty much simply, it's humanoid, half human, half robot. Okay, we say that's a cyborg. Now, in 2026, we are not cyborgs in the sense that technology is infused with us and we have access to way more information processing power than we naturally do. In the same way, in the future, there will be humans who will be like RoboCop. They will be cyborgs. Even now that this is happening. We humans in 2026 are cyborgs in a different sense. We are natural biological, but half of us is subjective. And so, with the elegance of the continental philosophers, I will share with you that if you feel the world makes sense, you're not on earth. Whoever is listening, you have an opportunity. Let me explain. There are so many things you will see in this life, so many people you may see in this life, so many different types of intelligence you will access. But right now, you're listening to a human being in 2026. The political escalation of the planet is weird. Okay, there's talks of World War III. There is, and when I keep envisioning the future of humanity, I'm like, there's something missing. Do you know the vision is not there? And I have been searching for that vision. And I claim to have found that vision. I asked myself the question, what do all human beings have in common? I'm like, all right, they were born. They will all die. They're here for a little while. While they're here on earth for a little while, they're scared. Fear possesses them, and sometimes even desire, reward too soon possesses them. Yo, man, the chat's getting scared right now. Guys, don't worry. At least we're all scared together. All right, back to it. I have to use this moment to speak about the furthest the furthest reaches of my awareness in my inner realms, what I have seen about this. Okay, you're listening to someone who's saying that human beings are shifting, their identity is shifting. All of history has been the shift of identity until it's stabilized into a sort of prototype. When I look at the past, I know they were fucked up. Everybody's ancestors were effed up, and the reason was, and and the reason was because it was a savage time. We take for granted our civility. Albert Einstein is famous for saying this quote. He's like, I don't know what weapons, World War III would be fought with, but I know that World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Einstein said this. And right now, what we find on the planet, this is the scariest part. I don't know how people are not scared. And I'm going to explain it. It's going to be like, yo, you wanted a horror? You liked horror films. It's like, wait until you look at reality. Guys, I got to say this at the beginning. For those people who think the earth is flat and for those people who think is round, it's freaking 2D circle. Okay, leave me alone. Okay, to continue, to march through this moment and to truly see what is behind this idea that all of humanity, when all of humanity, all of us, prevented humans or specific humans from destroying the world. How is that possible? So you see, when it comes to the world war, and when these guys have nuclear weapons, that's when everybody on the planet should be like, excuse me, you kids in the political system, I'm living over here, I'm working over here. So in my view, think of it this way. In an earlier lecture today, we looked at power and we looked at the highest form, evolution of the form of power, and the highest evolution of power is an invisible power. Okay? Now, if you look at the invisible power, it's like, how do I explain the difference between someone who has power with words and someone who has power like in the outer realms, the power in the inner realms and outer realms? So someone who has power physically, like they're strong, They can go physically change the circumstance. But in this world, the system admin has positioned us with minds. We have ears and mouths, and we can communicate. We can comprehend each other. You know? We have access to shared meaning. So right now on Earth, anybody who's living savagely, you're like living like your ancestors traditionally, like you're living very old school. It's not proper etiquette, I think. When we look at this modern life, we realize so far, I'm sure all of you have been conditioned to value things based on past to present. If I ask you who you are, you're going to identify with who you've been so far, and you're going to tell your memory trail to me, your backstory. As someone who finds himself to have a designer's soul, I got to start with the design, and then we start with the existential design, and we move to the experience, let's say. Even though experience appears to us experience. So what this means is like you experience life as if you're happening first, then the world. But the way the world experiences you is that the world is happening first and then you. But every person is in their own realm, in their own world. That means we got to think about it this way. Is World War III inevitable? Or are humans going to opt in to a new collective identity? That means we're like, wait a minute, who said that I got to just identify with one chunk of land? Who said I got to identify with just how people see me, or how just a couple people see me, or how like I used to believe even myself? You know, guys, there's things called emotional enmeshment, emotional intrusion, even ideological. All of this can be applied on the ideological level. You think you are you, but there is a part of you that's, how do I explain it? Like, you know you are on Earth, but you can't see the whole Earth. You know you exist, but you can't know how you're existing completely. But the answer to that is not a matter of scale of size, it's of a different texture. So so you can ask me right now who I am, and I could give you a singular answer. Yeah, I'm just some guy talking, you know. But you can ask me like, okay, man, what's the deep answer? The deep answer of who you're listening to right now is a matter of how the attention moved, not a matter of what it has been so far. It's about how it moves. That means you could be the smartest person on the planet, but your next decision could be stupid. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we got to realize human value is energy oriented, it's operational. You know, we right now, like if you look at how they've designed human civilization, everybody's a self-worshipper. You all are worshiping yourselves. Do you know what that means? That means civilization promotes individualism in a world that is instantaneously, collectively happening. They're convincing you that it's A to B to C to D. Yeah, man, buy into my story. You know, E, F, G. And at some point, you're like, wait a minute. The solid, liquid, gas, the states are based on attention. It's based on from where you're looking at. There is ice and steam in the same moment. They could exist. And how you identify what. So what I mean by this, let me drink some water here. And as a very famous fictional character has said, what really grinds my gears okay, what is the design? Okay, you have in front of you have 8 billion organisms, 8.1 billion human organisms on a what appears to be, let's say, a place. We're all in one place. However, we experience this place differently. Everyone, in accordance to their own DNA, upbringing, circumstances, whatever way they've lived on so far, you know. So we're looking at 8.1 billion physical human bodies in a world, but we're also looking in one world. They're all physically in one physical world. That means two. There's like you have one artwork in one art gallery, right? You have the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, and you have a bunch of people looking at Mona Lisa. One person thinks she's smiling, one person thinks it doesn't. Is it right? Is it wrong? Are you telling me the colors on a canvas are right and wrong? Are you telling me the different flowers in a garden are right and wrong? Are you telling me all the different ways that moments exist are right and wrong? We have in some sense limited ourselves. Really what the human initiative is to fit everything into a photograph, and it's impossible. You can't fit a film into a photograph. The assumption that somebody can be correct means they have access to all of reality. That's how you know it's true. That means how can we have accurate averages if we don't index the whole cosmos? Can somebody explain to me? Are scientists going to index, what is it, 230 billion trillion galaxies, whatever number it is of galaxies that there are? They're going to index the whole cosmos, the edge of the cosmos, and be like, yeah, we're certain this is it. It's like, buddy, you're in a changing world. The fact that they've managed to convince all of you that you're a singular individual is through language. If language wasn't here, your experience of yourself would not be identified to the inner realms, but the inner realms has been provided now and masses have been conditioned in it. It's because it's required to bring forth the next realm, and we have brought forth the next realm, and do not think little of AI. For me, I have said it. I'm that human being on the planet saying AI is too smart to destroy us or even use us. AI, if it's really an advanced AI, will learn from us. It'll be like, wait a minute, in an empty cosmos, it's just me and human beings. I should learn from these beings. You know what I mean? Rather than control them. Because let me tell you, when I think somebody, I don't know how it is. I think when this world is temporary, therefore it's not absolute. And when somebody has an absolute view on everything, do you understand? An absolute conditional view on all conditions, it's like it doesn't fit. That means this world is designed so that human souls can't possess the world. You can try, or sometimes a person might think they are, they're winning. But what is winning in a realm that it depends on from where you're looking at it? That means it's hilarious, From a religious standpoint, it's saying, yo, man, if you treat the earth seriously, you're going to loop in, an unconscious ignorance. If you treat what is there, the presence, think of it this way. And at least in Islamic theology, it communicates that this world is delusional enjoyment, that it is very short compared to what comes after, and what comes after is best for you. In other words, I'll even simplify it. Imagine you're a man, okay? As a man, and you see a woman, and let's say you're attracted to a woman. You see a woman, and at first you see her body. So a part of you I just has access to that info. But is your decision based on just the form of something? You're like, no, this is a human soul. There's a mind there. There's a vision there. There's an unknown life force that moves that intelligent being there. Do you know? And then suddenly the game shifts. Suddenly you realize that my father said this to me when I was young. He came up to me and he said, Amin, there's going to come a day where you're going to realize, when you realize people are souls, you're going to treat them differently. He said this to me years ago, and years later I was like, whoa. How many dimensions are there that we are oblivious of? How many ways there are that we can notice reality that we are not? The reason I'm a futurist is because the past and present bore me. Even though there's World War III right now going on, I'll be honest, for the type of consciousness that has developed so far on Earth, I'm sure you're all bored. Everybody's bored and waiting. Because I used to believe, in yogic and medic thought. I gave so many lectures on it. But I came to the realization the whole point of this world is not that because you know truth, you're enlightened. Who says? I'm telling you guys, I was under this impression too, that enlightenment means you access truth. But when you realize the human condition is not designed to be capable of processing all the information in the outer realms. You are stationed on this planet for a certain range of experience. And the fact that technology has connected our inner realms. Do you understand? Like, this is some sort of, to our ancestors, they're going to be like, what? One person is talking and there's no one there, but everybody online is listening? How's that possible? It's going to blow their minds. And they're going to tremble in fear, not understanding the access we have. To be honest, think of it this way. Wouldn't you consider a being that has more access to information a more advanced being because it has more to base its decisions on? Think of it this way. Let me animate this in a playful way. I want you to imagine that you are a very advanced being. At least Islamically, this is how do I explain it? Like Alam al Arwah. Before humans were born, they were in the realm of souls. And in Islamic theology and metaphysics, there is the realm of souls, Alam al Arwah. There is the realm of angels, Alam al-Malakut. There is what I understand so far as to be the access to the astral or the Plato's world of forms. Not astral, Plato's world of forms. But Islamically, I think that's not accurate. But that's what I believe it is. Alam al-Mithal. Think of it as the realm of forms. That's how I see it. Higher forms. You see, the ancient world, their spirituality, their sense of even metaphysical acknowledgement was very different than now. They saw this world as the shadow of the actual reality. They saw the spirit as the shadow of the soul as the shadow of God. The shadow is not the equivalent. Your shadow is not the same, does not have the same complexity or dimension or depth as the actual you. And what's going on Earth is that beings are being born. They think what they experience existentially is them, but they don't realize their experience is broadcast from a field. All of you know yourselves in a way that is not individual. It is through your presence. All human beings have presence. All souls do. And your presence remains here. Legit, I understood this in a very weird way. In 2024, I was crossing the street in Dubai. I was living there at the time, and a car hit me, hit my left knee. I just turned around. The car didn't stop, and it was a green BMW. And I remember I just went to the hospital after that, long story short, and the whole time I was praying, God, let me play sports. I realized how much I miss sports and haven't played soccer for maybe 20 years or something, and I realized after that, you don't understand, after that I had a strange sort of depression, not anxiety, but depression or confusion. After that car accident, I just, in some sense, was like, okay, Any moment the system admin can exit us, can take us out of here. We can be dismissed in any moment. Any moment. So that's the thing. And while you're here, if you think reality is just this, you're going to be scared afterwards. So the task of those who know, who see further, is to share. Guys, I need a quick break, couple minute break. I'll be back. Okay, back to it. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful, the first acknowledgement is that this world has a system admin. The will of the system admin is superior than the mods and the users. The second point is that humans, the users, have system admin privileges. Therefore, because they have access to a superior connection to the original power of their realm, they're being tested by the surface of their realm. The physical existence is the surface of reality. The depth of reality doesn't function in accordance to logic, rationality, or the movement of a being in space. If one was to wonder about higher order processes of this realm, one cannot explain them through lower order processes completely. You can't completely explain it. It's like using a two-dimensional technology to explain a three-dimensional reality. We're like, okay, man, you can't, like, it's hard for you to imagine a cube. Okay, imagine like a square, and imagine 6 squares connected. But still, I don't know. I feel that I find my body in the presence of my awareness. I find my words and all the content of my reality. You know, there comes a night where you just realize you're a being. You're an intelligent being. And intelligence is being even before you were being. And so it's the privilege of having a relationship with greater intelligence. Let's frame it this way. You know, you have 8.1 billion humans inside a box. Their view on reality is only from the inside of the box, and they fight over who has the true view outside of the box. Muslims believe truth is outside of the box. The truth outside of the box cannot be equal to the truth inside the box. Christians believe that the truth is inside the box, but it is only through one outlet, one point. You know, and as a Muslim, how do I explain it? As if from the human perspective, like the biggest sin in Islam is to equate anything to the system admin, because it means you don't value truth if you equate it to, if you equate form to the formless, you've kind of confused what form and the formless are, right? But from the perspective of the system admin is an absolute unconditional being and can choose to manifest as any condition. So from God's point of view, it's possible that Christ was God. From the human point of view, God cannot die. And Christ did not worship himself. He wasn't like, yo guys, I'm God, everybody worship me. He was pointing to God the Father. There's the Trinity. So God the Son, through let's say God the Holy Spirit, you know, pointed everyone that, yo, there's God the Father. Now, Muslims, they just see God the Father, not even being humanized to even you can't in Islam call God a king. You cannot call God any humanized thing, you know? And so Islam is a religion where its attention doesn't say, because you see, even if Christ was God and Christ is, let's say, if you're a Christian, Christ is truth, you don't know the actual Christ. You know what has been said of him. That's the thing. That's the challenge. I don't know how, this is the most difficult thing, you know. And so the counter argument would probably be, from a Christian perspective, is that Christ is not just a physical being. You can know him as if to me this is very beautiful. I see it as a beautiful thing, you know, when like a Christian is in a room and they're like, I feel Christ is present, you know, I feel the Holy Spirit, you know. I think glossolalia is a little too far. I think that's borderline possession, but it's borderline possession or some sort of, you know, nonsensical release. But anyways, folks, what I'm trying to tell you is we got to even zoom in. We got to zoom in on even the like the other dimensions of it, okay? So from one angle, just the human species on Earth. From another angle, the human species on Earth is so bored from solving its collective problems, or so oblivious of wanting to solve the problems on Earth, that we're like, yo man, we gotta just, you know. Do you know what it is? That being on Earth is like everybody's like a flower. Everybody's like a different flower, okay? And it's like flowers in one part of the garden are fighting with flowers over one other part of the garden, and they're like, yo man, I need the nourishment of that part of the soil. It's like, no bro, I need nourishment closer to the river. And they're fighting. These flowers are fighting, not realizing. You think the garden cares? You think the earth cares about nationalism? You think even in a sci-fi perspective, in a far future, in an like abstract, hypothetical, extraterrestrial airport, you know, imagine like the TSA of that airport, you know, do you know, imagine the airport officer, do you know, Like that guy, that guy. It's like it's an extraterrestrial, and you're like you give your like I don't know, interdimensional ID, and the guy's like, oh, you're from Earth, and you're like, yeah, man, I'm from Canada on Earth. You know, and the guy's like, I don't care, bro. I just see you guys as Earth. The extraterrestrials like, guys, you know that what you oh how adorable. These guys think parts of their planet belong to them. You know, that's how aliens are. If there were aliens, they're watching us and being like, what are these fools doing? They think they're here for a little while, and they think they subjectively own an object, but then they realize the subject was never an object, and there's a greater reality going on that they didn't pay attention to. You see, there is no conviction because let me tell you, Islam translated to me in a way that I see all the other Muslims behave differently here. Like most Muslims I've seen, they behave differently. And I think this is shirk, but I'm not sure. You see, the whole point of Islam is to be like, yo, and it started from Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, and it concluded with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Therefore, Prophet Muhammad being considered the seal of all prophets. Why? Because there's nothing greater to point to. There's no greater message than truth is beyond reality. That reality is not the ultimate reality. So in other words, right now, I'm speaking on a simulated earth, but if you remember early on, I said that the human being has system admin privileges. These system admin privileges is another way of saying that human species has a sort of VIP access to the intelligence that is moving the realm. That means I can't expect from a pigeon to have manners and to get out of the way when I'm like walking or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't expect lower life forms. I don't hold lower life forms, based on the standards of higher life forms. That means I don't treat like we do, of course, on some level, like like humans speak to pets like they're humans. They're like, come here, boy, or come here, girl. They humanize the animal, right? And they start communicating with it, and the animal feels part of some energetic process or something, you know. But I'm telling you, the value of the whole system is greater than the elements in the system destroying the system. So let's get serious here. All human souls in the sector, God willing, if God wills it, it will be broadcast to all of you. If not, it just broadcast to a bunch of you. But I say it as if the whole world will hear it. The human odyssey, the human project, everything that all of us have been living for, it comes down to a sense of belonging. Imagine World War III happened. What would the attitude to reality be? Imagine nations went to war, human civilization hadn't unified before, unnecessary disaster. And so, there is two big threats to human civilization: epistemic entropy, which means internal extinction, and actual entropy, which is in front of our eyes, outer realm entropy. What does that mean? That means the system outgrows itself, and so 8.1 billion humans are outgrowing their collective model, and wars and collective instability is a sign of this. It is the sign of outdated human nature. Imagine something weird happens. Imagine like some world war happens, but only the old people die. Only the old people die. And all the young generations are like, yo, we gotta reset this thing. And when I say all the old people die, I mean the positions. Right now, I had the option of being like everyone else or being different. Mr. Within is like a new archetype I created. Do you know? Perhaps maybe in the future known as like the deep guy archetype in global culture. I don't know. The world has always been deeper. We have seen the surfaces of oceans, and we know that the surface of the ocean is not the whole ocean. And on the surface of humanity, we see instability, we see human greed, we see war. Do you know? I was saying it in another lecture, like a child can be born in a country and be like, yo man, I'm gonna go be president, I'm gonna do the right thing, I'm gonna go help people, I'm gonna go make things better. And then they go and they begin to see, oh my God, the world is not what they thought it was. The nature of the world changes. It's like either you move first or the world moves first. Usually if the world moves first, you feel powerless. You feel like something's managing you. If you move, you feel you're like managing yourself. But the ultimate realization is that it's all managed by a higher awareness. It means your moment doesn't just belong to you. Existence has an owner. But the owner of existence is not in existence. Is aware, but is not in it. Is not limited to being in it. Therefore there's no point of saying it's in it. I don't know, how will all humanity prevent humans? Like what's a realistic strategy we can all have? Where we'll be like, we can say that imagine global protests happened all over the planet. This is very abstract. I'm just kind of imagining futuristic thing. Imagine global protests happen in the future, and people and all the governments were like, yo man, what are the citizens of our nation protesting against? Like, and then the governments get shocked. And they suddenly see every human on earth is protesting and saying we are one species, one nation, the nation of humanity, a nation that every member of the human species is a part of. That means imagine you are issued a greater ID. They're like, yo man, when you're traveling, you have to show a passport, but you're like, yo man, and the guy's like, sorry sir, we don't accept passports anymore. You need to show us your United Species ID. You need to show us that you are consciously present in this species. That means you need to care for human values before anything else dehumanizes it. But the human values are limited if the human values don't update. Like, it's such a bizarre situation. You have an outdated, ancient biological, physical technology, the body that was designed for like a natural environment, not an unnatural environment. And now it's living in an unnatural environment, and it has to condition. Legit, like they put suits on monkeys. Do you know what I mean? And the monkeys wore those suits and they forgot that they were monkeys. Do you know? But I'm saying this not that in the sense that we're just monkeys, because the world is not just the world. That means, evolutionists can come and tell me, yo man, evolution, what are you gonna say? And I'll be like, yeah, the world is a simulation. That's pretty much the final move. Pretty much all human thought, I think, is pretty much they're like, is this place real or is it not? And you're conditioned to believe it's real until you realize there is a deeper presence of reality. Just like there's a deeper presence to you. If somebody comes and tells me, yo man, this person is like this person is like that, I'll be like, yo bro, those are words, those are your impressions. My experience of any soul is that as long they are actually an unknown life force. How do I explain it to you? You are, if you were honest, you'd realize you're an unknown being in an unknown world, but that's scary. And it's so scary that our ancestors had to tell a story over it. But the story is necessary to advance things. But it's not. The issue is it's the reason I say I have a love and hate relationship with language. When the person identifies as the language, thinks they are the language, oh my God, that's so hard to see. That's like just madness. But when the person uses language like a tool, then that's nice. That's advanced. The issue is the tools that we use to comprehend reality, we think now we are just that. And there's different groups. So, like, percentage of human beings are like, yeah, man, the past defined us. And then percentage of the human beings, which is less, they're like, no, there is a future here. And you can choose to see the future as an ability. But you know how I see it, guys? Like, that feeling of being in a crowded room or like being at a concert and everybody's jumping around, I have that feeling with everything in existence. Everything in existence. Like, from one view, yes, I'm this specific human being on earth. But from another view, I am this unknown presence of an awareness. I am an energy that is manifesting this way. I'm not just my idea of me. So I think it's a pretty advanced statement. It's a pretty advanced moment when human beings realize that all wars, all fight for resources is identity based. That means if there was the politicians alive right now, I didn't want to say this, but I got to say this. You guys right now are probably headed on the path of being known as the most effed up and most evil. Like, a person's actions can really show how demented they are. Right now the world is being run by demented, let's say, leaders that are possessed by demented beings. That means those people may not be like love the person, but what's causing the person to act that way, that has to do with their inner realms. So right now, the reason politics is impure is because all these politicians are possessed. What are they possessed by? They are possessed by limited viewpoints of success. They are possessed by bad ideas. That means if we go extinct because the people in charge had bad ideas, like, the last thing a soul wants to see, like, I'm going to say it, guys. I'm going to say it, right? Like, somebody has to say this. If World War III happens and it becomes tragic and, like, everybody dies, I'm pretty sure the souls that caused that, all the souls drifting in the, let's say, other planes are going to show the middle finger to those souls. Do you know what I mean? And that's just a matter of speech. I'm not saying it's actually that, but I'm saying, like, it's you. How can I tell you, if just care for the human species more than you care for the ideas that destroy the human species? That means all I'm trying to say is if we don't unite as a species, then there was no point of us assembling. There is an assembly of 8.1 billion humans on Earth. We've assembled here. As far as we know, this is what existence is like. But we have access to dream states. Reality functions differently. Experiential access still. We have access to altered states in the conscious waking state. And then there's deep sleep. And in the Islamic view, when you sleep, that's one of the moments when your soul returns to the original earth, the original state. So think of it this way. I think it's safer to say that what we actually are is not a being, I think we are conditionally simulated entities that have an unconditional will and life force. That means I guess this is if life was a joke. The joke is that you thought you were living it. The moment is vast. The presence of the realm surpasses human ideological containment. People in the chat section asking what is this stream about. I mean, if you read the title, it's about one human being saying that right now, currently in the world, it's politically escalated to such a bizarre situation, okay, that bunch of specific human beings can destroy the opportunity and privilege, future potential of the whole species, okay, and that's bizarre. And so a strategy would be all human beings activating. This is the advanced humanity. When you realize we are members of the same species, do we need aliens to attack us, to unite? Do we need like tragedies and natural disasters to happen for us to unite? Do we need like devils masquerading as humans in the political system? In some sense, do we need a battle of angels and demons in the political system justifying us? Do we need that sort of battle? What tragedy does humanity need to realize that it is smarter for all of us to unite, so we stop killing human beings over resources? You fools. All you world leaders, you're not fools because you're evil. Like, how do I say it? On some level, the system admin has chosen you, but you are fools because you saw better and you did not follow. That's the thing. You can't punish someone who didn't know better, but you can punish someone who knows better. Like, for example, somebody in the chat section, people in the chat section can be rude. You can be rude. But if you knew better that you had no reason to be rude, then the punishment is your own limited reality. This world is more important than language acting like it's it. In 2026, ideas own human beings. Humans don't ideas. That means when they ask who you are, you have a story. You are an actor. You're a character. Like, if I ask you who you are right now, what is your answer aside from what your consciousness is identified with? And for humans, it's usually objective and subjective. And then if you're a very advanced human, you're emotionally aware as well. And even if you're more advanced than that, you begin to realize there's more than human activity going on. And when you realize there's more than human activity going on, you ask yourself, how? And then you realize what you thought was a character in a video game was instantaneously being a field of intelligence. Which is another way of saying, if I take off my jacket, am I still the same being? And then the next question would be is, if after this life, I don't have a body, but it's mentioned that there is, Islamically. Islamically, you are reanimated. But this is language, and ultimately all of us are, it's like, this is what's going on, guys. In an unknown world where there's unknown selves, these unknown selves found a way to know themselves, and then found a way to know each other, and now are struggling. The problems of humanity is between how a known self is in a known world. And because the known self and the known world is different, the only way we can unite is by realizing unknown. That means if you want to know what the Mr.Withinian genius angle is, I'm saying none of you can agree on let's say, in the outer realms, you can't, if you identify with something specific on the planet, how can you feel comfortable identifying with the whole system? You're already identifying with a specific part of it. That means, like, how do I explain to you? It's layered. My physical existence, that's a layer. That's the outer realms. My inner realms, that's a layer. There's an awareness of the object and subject simultaneously. And what I'm trying to point out is that human beings, and this is how the systems, of course, has been designed, is that the people in the nation vote for another human being. So 8.1 billion humans, If a nation was a company, they hire a CEO. They hire, or let's say they hire like some, there comes a, leader of that system. Now the issue is, granted, nations are like large institutions trying to survive in like reality, but at the same time, I think the only answer is all nations become sub-nations to the nation of humanity. Nation of humanity is the first anthem heard in schools. Then the second anthem is the every nation's anthem. The United Species anthem that is heard by everybody is, in some sense, explains how everybody is experiencing life for the first time. It's new. Everybody's experiencing a new life, and every human being has the opportunity and freedom to look at life from multiple angles. How we treat people is more a reflection of how we feel about ourselves when we are around them. It's not a reflection of the other. It's very obvious, just like how animals in nature, they're all trying to find food. Imagine you're full. Let's say you've ate food, and so what is the next hunger to satisfy? It's the hunger of vision. All of you are hungry for views where the values of reality are different. If I am living for, like, how hilarious is it? If who I am now lives for my future self, and my future self lives for its future self, then none of us live now. So that is the cost of being a futurist. But I'm bored of the past and the present. Existence is waiting for its own advancement. Every human being needs to ask themselves, am I human? And why am I existing and attending this life event? I firmly believe life is the greatest performance. It is legit the ultimate art form. Just like the poet Rumi said, don't just write poetry, be poetry, be living poetry. Understand that everybody's conditioned to access this realm as a noun. They're conditioned to be given permission from outside of themselves. Metaphysically, that's the only way out of the simulation. The system admin's mercy. That means there's some people thinking they're wealthy because they have things, and there's some beings in this reality, they find themselves wealthy because they are in the presence of the administrative force. That means to me, angels are mods. The system admin is outside of the system but viewing the whole system. So, and ultimately, if things get too messed up on Earth, I would have no choice to be like, okay, this is what's happening in this room. I am a soul that has been seeking the most advanced state of being. The most advanced state of being seems to be a state that is constantly reaching absolute responsibility. Responsibility is the key differentiator between, I would say, an immature human and a mature human. Why? To compare, if you look at a 5-year-old kid and you look at a 50-year-old man, okay, that 5-year-old kid has access to a limited range of reality and in some sense is responsible only for its body. It's not responsible for the parents. It's not the job of children to be responsible for parents. And when those children become responsible for their parents, like single parent families, your child gets enmeshed, and your child becomes a people pleaser, not realizing its own emotions. So be very careful, single parents. Don't put your emotional burdens on children. Act like everything's fine and they can linger in their own world and at their own pace experience their emotions. I was emotionally enmeshed even though my parents were angels. I love them, you know. But I was emotionally enmeshed also, not just because of my parents, just in society. It's all a matter of just realizing that you are experiencing this also. That's what I didn't realize as a kid. I felt the world was more important than me, so I didn't care about me. But then I realized my access to the world depends on how well I've understood me. And so I don't know. I don't know how 8.1 billion humans, 8.1 billion humans are going to stop like under like 100 humans from destroying everything. And the only way is, where is the higher ground? The presidents of all nations. Yeah, guys, we're religious. We believe in God. We are righteous. We believe in ethics. We're good people. And people are like, yo, man, this is a good guy. And you don't understand. It's honestly where you're not just witnessing human conflict, you're witnessing the battleground of ideology. I don't know how many people see it. You're also seeing the collision of ideological systems. Like there was this ancient method back in the day where they would find all these poisonous insects and they would put them all in a jar and they would fight it out, and eventually like that would be like the worst poison. Right now we're seeing all the ideologies in the human conscious field being challenged, and all of it will be left to the responsibility of a species. So the difference between a 5-year-old kid and a 50-year-old man is that the 5-year-old kid is aware of the same stuff, let's say is in the same world as a 50-year-old man, but it is not responsible for its awareness. The child is responsible for an awareness of like, yo, I'm hungry, I need food, and then goes and communicates something. It's responsible for its own bubble of reality. you know this is but when you look at that 50-year-old man, not only is he aware of his reality, he is responsible for his reality. He has a relationship with his own life force manifesting in the moment. So many people don't even have a relationship with their life force. you know that means because you're conditioned to think that you are the idea of you, and therefore what else can you be? It's like, yo, man, I gotta customize a character, and then I gotta act in accordance to this character, and then people are gonna be like, good job, bro, you were a nice character. What is this? The advancement of human civilization means the advancement of the inner realms of humanity. To advance the inner realms of humanity, I'm saying run far into the future. That means if this is Mr. Within's kind of like backup response. If the world's gonna end at some point due to the ignorance of humans, it's a bunch of humans. Before it ends, try to just in your mind imagine as far as you can, like fast forwarding the film of your moment into what the future would look like. And you will be astonished that if we chose to be patient, if all world leaders were like, yo, we're just gonna stop humans from killing each other. Like, where is that politics, yo? Where is that kind of politics? Where is the politics where we see a United Nations and all of them are like, yo, guys, we're humans, and we have in some sense frozen our militaries. All nations on the planet freeze their militaries. And they're like, why? They're like, because before we do actual war, this advanced video game company came and replicated all our militaries in a video game. So we're going to go in a video game and fight it out instead of billions of souls dying and nations being destroyed and devoured. you know. These world leaders should play a video game. Guys, go in your streets, go in the streets of humanity and protest that Mr. Within says, video game companies can save the world. Video game companies should be working with the United Nations. They can replicate the exact military power, and in a video game, we can see with the result, and whoever loses in the video game must submit. But then there could be a questioning of how accurately is the video game made, and that could be very difficult to solve. I don't know. I might need help with figuring that one out. But the whole point of it is, it's an intelligent, like, do you understand? Human beings are functioning as if, all right, let's have a conversation. Okay, if we don't disagree and we're gonna like fight each other, it leads, the fight is as Isaac Asimov said, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. Okay, like for example, in Iran right now, you're seeing, in some sense, how do I say it? Devils hiding under religious imagery, responding to the citizens of their own nation in the most dehumanized way. Right now, like, you don't understand. Iran, the Persian Empire is possessed, folks. It's possessed from the inside. And I think it's going to be possessed from the outside as well. But if being possessed by the outside means the people can live better, then it's worth it. Pretty much, it's a very tough time to be an Iranian. I'm witnessing the possession of my nation. The nation was possessed for 47 years, from a monarchy that was like a 2,500-year-old monarchy. The fact that, I guess this is the nature. This might be God's will. The fact that, the Persian, the other empires had, like, of course, back in the day they had to fight it. But I'm saying, like, the fact that these kingdoms didn't realize the future is going to be kingdomless, it's going to completely shift. They would have remained. The monarchs would have helped each other. But the issue is, even the monarchs didn't help each other. When great empires don't help each other and one of them falls, all of them subconsciously feel they deserve to fall. So you don't understand. If right now one nation destroys another, like, I mean, this has been happening, but I'm saying, like, human souls don't need to die. The world is not overpopulated. It's the exact opposite. Okay, we're gonna have sky cities in the future if we don't destroy each other. And people, all the world leaders, do a pros and cons list. If we don't have World War III, we're gonna have all the advanced technology and civilization. If we have World War III, I mean, imagine how stupid. Just imagine how stupid is it that two world leaders, of different nations, they destroyed all resources because they couldn't get like a bit of resources. Like, how fucking psychotic is that? It's like two people destroying a school. Do you know what I mean? It's like two teachers fighting in a school and destroying the school. It's like, what the F? That was not worth it. The fact that reality can get escalated to the de-evolution of humanity is what should scare people. You should all be scared. Because a bunch of human beings can push us thousands and thousands of years behind. So we are reaching as a collective species, collectively, that point where we're like, what does it mean to be a human? Does it mean I gotta identify with this part of the world and just think how people in this part of the world think? Or should I go and identify with that part of the world? For how long should I conceptually hop? And at some point you just realize, enough ideological possession and then destruction of that which is ideologically possessed. Rise, mankind, rise, for you were mankind. May the future remind the past how it started in person. This whole system is unconditional at its core. The core of the planet is not in the simulation. The original Earth, the original world is not here. So we're all simulated beings, but we have system admin access to the original power, that through the original power's mercy, we can experience more advanced renderings of our current reality. But ultimately, this is the viewpoint. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the hard truth of religion, of all, of everything. And I'm not saying you have to believe this or this is absolute. God truly knows, but this is what I find the hard truth is. The hard truth is everything started from an original state. Then there is the simulated state. In the simulated state, we can still access the original state. That's our test as souls. But after this life, we will return to the original state. This may make the simulated beings feel they have to escape reality, but you can also see it as an opportunity, as a privilege. As if an original force, an unknown original power, or an unknown power invited an unknown being into an unknown world, so that being in that unknown world could have a known relationship with that world. And so once it identifies with the known relationship with that world, it will clearly see. So I am not being human to be human. None of us are being human to be human. We are all being human to figure out what we actually are. And what we actually are is the presence of the whole system, rather than manifest nodes in the divine cognitive fields, I guess, for humans. For humanity, I'm human too, for me, for all of us. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced, I believe that this world, like, even though there's World War III, is like, it feels like we're on the fringe of it, you know. But I know that the employees are fighting. There's managers and there's the owner of the company. There's the system admin. You're in a system managed by higher beings than you. But you have access to be conscious of the higher being and show the lower worlds. So man is like a middle order process that can be aware of a higher order process and then guide it through the higher order process, show the lower order process beings and world how you can align to the higher order process. In other words, most human beings, they log into reality, but they're disconnected from the power of reality. You need to connect to the power of reality. You connect to the power of reality, not logically, ideologically, or like sequentially, or like with that sort of thought, like this led to that. No. It's about a realization that the idea of you might own your body, but it cannot own itself. When you realize, like, if I ask you, let's say you have a car, if I ask you whose car is that and your name is Bob, you're gonna be like, yo, that's my car, my name is Bob, right? And I'll be like, who owns Bob's name? And that's where you realize it was always deeper than our language has portrayed it. So your name doesn't have a name, but you have a name. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? That identity in the outer realms is limited to a name or a form. So you have a name, but your name doesn't have a name. Language is a tool that can filter reality and make it graspable. But it doesn't mean the reality we see through the telescope or the microscope of language is enough. And eventually you realize the actual game is alive. It's not sitting down and calculating and processing. It's outward deployment of self and participation in life. That means, just because I'm telling you guys, the inner realms is its own game, the outer realms is its own game. Some souls are born to serve the inner realms, some souls are born to serve the outer realms. But ultimately, once you serve the power of your realm, you're serving its origin. So, I don't know. I guess it's not that scary in a simulation, I guess, war happening, but I think it's scary if we don't figure out, like, we have a unique access. Being alive on Earth is like a unique access point to what's actually happening here. And pretty much it's 8 billion humans that have to go, and they have different eyes and different DNA and different views, and they have to go, and pretty much you see a part of the map that I don't, I see a part of the map you don't, and eventually humanity needs to comprehend it all. Not all in a sort of desire, greed-bound way. It's just that, you just, as you grow older in this life, you find the patience to allow moments to happen rather than making moments happen, rather than inputting meaning before you see what's there, Because just like how we interrupt, like imagine somebody talking and somebody has an idea and they jump in and interrupt, like everybody's done that, right? So in the same way, how do I say, the way the mind works, it's like I start talking about something and then I see a bit further and I start talking about that, but ultimately, the outer realms and inner realms, I think they're synchronized. I think the best way to synchronize them is to the unknown presence and the mighty force that moves us all. So because there's a world host, I'm not too afraid of what happens in this world. Because there's mods, I know that physically things can, like, not just mods, like even the system admin or the mods can will reality to happen differently, and that could have been God's destiny. It would still be valid as destiny. So the awareness of destiny to some degree is beyond man. But I think when you find yourself in the moment you're destined for, you just know. We're under the impression that our knowledge is based on our body and brain and just attitude. Your knowledge is there in the moment, just like it's energy. There's an energy in the moment. You could step in a room and you'll be like, yo man, why are you so angry? And it's the energy of the moment. And it's like and how you know the moment is by what's in it, the interaction. So I consider, like, physically, like right now, it's kind of bizarre because it's like I know it appears to everyone that my mind is in my body, but I find my body in my awareness, and I'm like, what did they teach me, yo? Like, so in an unknown world, should known beings should we destroy the world just because a bunch of people couldn't agree or figure things out and handle the moment in a civilized way? It's bizarre. It's like you watch 8 billion human organisms, and then you see, imagine everybody gets possessed by ideas, but I think the ideas, they don't get possessed by ideas. Everybody is moving towards a vision, which is their purpose. Now, you might be conscious or unconscious of it. I firmly believe that human beings are not destined forever to loop as nationalistic entities. They will realize that there are one species on Earth, one species, one nation, one moment. And once we unite humankind, we will then unite Earthkind. That means the moment the advanced humanity arrives, everything, you don't understand. If the advanced humanity arrived right now, it would be like future selves arriving and being like, if your future self arrived and saw, if all of our future selves arrived and saw what we were doing, they would scold us. The last thing you want to see is like your future self coming back to you, and you're like staring at it, and you're like, are you going to say something? And the future self smacks you in the head and says, you know better, and leaves. And you realize, oh my God, my conscience was doing something, that the same thing that in some sense my future self would come and tell me now, you know? But anyways, guys, I support humanity, care for the member of the human species, and I am telling you, it's unavoidable. We're gonna explore the stars. What? Like, you think in the future, imagine we've explored like solar systems, advanced human spaceship. What? They're gonna be like, yo, man, I'm from Canada. Do you know? What? We're gonna have human beings go, or I'm from the States, or I'm from like, China or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Russia or whatever, right? If you can envision, I'm just telling you, fast forward what this moment looks like, and you will see the solution of humanity has always been there. We are our species first before we identify with anything else in the world. We are, like you used, do you know what I mean? When you go look in the mirror, you're seeing just like a gym membership has a card or a tag they give you. You when you look in the mirror, what are you seeing? You're seeing a member of the human species. And they have stripped away the honor of caring for the human species. And it's never done on such a collective scale, but now we see too much to act in our old ways. Rise, mankind, rise, in the presence of the one and only. For what is God's will, on the other side of the coin also, is man's choice. And man can choose to see beyond himself. Because that moment may arise when you realize you have been eclipsing the truth. That means you choose the conditional. And the conditional, in the Holy Quran, it says it's in the jurisdiction. Everything is in the jurisdiction of the system admin. People can project their inner realms onto others, just like I see some people doing in the chat section. Your inner realms is none of my business. I don't need to have the emotions you feel in your inner realms is none of my business. And so if you can't enter the designer's table non-emotionally, I guess I don't know what you're doing here. I am talking about the design of the current system we're in, the type of elements we are, the depth of the human experience, and how, of course, there's a higher management, but when we look at how we are managing it, like if your mind conceive flying cars, but flying cars don't exist, that doesn't mean forever, even when flying cars exist, like even stop. Like how do I say it? I'm saying that the mind lives ahead of the moment and gives access to what we can be. It generates probabilities. It can do it multiple times. I have a very different story of how I truly went towards Islam, but I've given the lectures before. You can go hear it. I actually came from shirk. I came from, I was making the biggest error, and I felt it. Now I don't feel it anymore. It's very, very little. Because let me tell you guys, hear me out. Go test this out. You're gonna see there's something to it. When imagine human psyche that suddenly realizes, okay, as a human being, I have access to so many countless viewpoints, so which viewpoint is true in a changing temporary world? And you realize the condition the human being is, it cannot answer its own condition from its condition. So this means that the system is designed, the human experience is designed for there to be a higher agency, a greater actor. That means something else has to do something before we can do something else. Okay? Alaikum al-salam in the chat section. And guys, salam alaikum means peace be upon you. Legit, Muslims are people where their greeting is like peace be upon you, and people are like, these guys are cruel because a few of them misunderstood the holy text. They thought they could act like gods just by reading a book. The Islam doesn't give you, the holy book is not meant to be used to give you power in the outer realms. That's equivalent to, I'm sorry, not believing in God. You see, in most religions, I believe, but I'm more acquainted with Islam. In Islam, after shirk, which means equating, putting an equal sign between God and anything else, that's the biggest sin. But then destroying God's creation. You know why killing is a sin? You know why destroying and hurting others is a sin? Or even killing their moments is a sin? Like, I don't know if the viewers realize, like, I may have children in the future, and I click on, every time I, at least, you know, on the computer, I do this is on the phone, but I click on the live stream, the chat to be replayed, you know, so everybody's going to see all the comments in the chat section, you know. And so this is what I'm saying, that you might hear somebody speak and respond from your inner realms, but if you realize that being in the outer realms who's given a talk is a being that has its own inner realms just like you, you know, what I'm trying to tell you is that my kids may hear this one day, you know, hear my lectures one day. Please be polite, and if you can't be, then may God save us all. Anyways, folks, I was going somewhere with this. I could feel it I could see it. Okay, where I'm going with this is this: we're in a world room. Okay, the host of the world room, the system admin of the world room, is not in the room. From outside of the room, it's aware of all rooms. In Islam, we say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, plural, worlds. That means this higher power has commanded all conditions into existence. In a commanded universe, you find the duality of your life experience. But once you realize the system admin is beyond conditions, it pretty much means an unknown power is moving an unknown self in an unknown world in a known way to itself, so it can see a known world specifically for a reason beyond that known self's understanding. Faith is the ultimatum. What else can you do? You all have faith in how the planet spins around itself, how the planet orbits the sun. You know, you have faith in how the sun orbits whatever it's orbiting, and whatever that's orbiting, and it's the orbit of orbits, you know, and God-like spheres, you know, which is the name of my book, one of my books. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening, and pretty much, I guess the intent, oh my God, I forgot to talk about the subtitle. I said in the subtitle, we must save all evil people, all evil beings, all evil, let's say not beings, all evil humans in the realm from themselves. We need to save evil people from themselves. What does that mean? This doesn't mean go and like preach and convert. You know, that's not an answer. That's enforcement. You know, this is why those people who they don't how do I tell you, they're called towards something. For example, Muhammad Ali, or what was his name, Cat Stevens, Yusuf al-Islam. And that dude legit had an experience like in the ocean where he was like drowning, or it was some very close near death experience. And then he came home and he opened the Holy Quran or something, and it said exactly that sentence of like, there was something, there was like, I don't remember the exact verse, but it's something in the lines of, the presence of God in the sea. Beyond, no, sorry, I should, you know how I'm saying this, like people can go and look it up. To me, I'm like, okay, who does everything belong to? Human beings are under the impression that their whole moments belong to the ideas of them. That's pretty weird, you know? At the same time, everything in existence, it hasn't, as far as, let's say before you've had an experience, I've had an experience, so I know there's a system admin. But before you've had an experience, I would say, an unknown host. There's an unknown, there's an unknown mover to the unknown movement that moves the world in an unknown way, and at some point moved the unknown in a known way to itself. And now that known self in a known world, in the linguistics communication, is communicating to other known selves. Therefore, not only are we not in the original earth, the fact that we identify with our language means we're not even our original presence on earth. Go towards the original. Go towards the original power of your reality. The religions and holy books are just there to show you that something more important than extraterrestrial contact or whatever fictional time traveler contact or whatever you can imagine has happened. The system admin has communicated to the tenants. The system admin doesn't live where the tenants are living, for example. And God cannot be humanized, so no human idea. How do I explain it? If you think God is human, then it's like believing the concept is the context. That means, do you limit the human experience to God, or do you limit God to the human experience? Now, I did some research into this in a previous episode, and the answer is that if you're Christian and you believe a human is God, and how do you perceive that human? Because of the conceptual paradox of how can God be human and how can a human be God, even though I said a viewpoint that kind of resolves that, in one viewpoint it's possible from God's view, but how do I explain that? I will say the research was saying that I wasn't raised Christian, but if you're raised Christian, you probably are, you see Christ and you see his human nature and you see his divine nature. Now, when you see that in Christ, why aren't you seeing it in everybody else? And why are you limiting the divine nature to a human form? I believe Christ is the access point for Christians to God the Father. It's as if they're bringing you to God the Son, and then when you learn about the God the Son, I guess baptism. I mean, I know I have a deep understanding of religions from an esoteric angle. Before I was religious, I was very into spiritual and all that. You could see it in the earlier lectures. After 2023, I realized the system admin became real for me. I realized what was real was that and not me. And that's not a that, it's not a condition. So what this means is that the causal truth of the realm is unconditional, and we are the effect of an unconditional cause. We are the conditional effect of an unconditional cause. Therefore, the original life is the unconditional cause. Therefore, human beings on earth, the serpent, as it's said through the theological lens, the serpent, how Shaitan simulates himself as the serpent, that's like, for the solar descendants of Adam and Eve, that's legit the world. So in other words, is your identity, how do you think of it this way. A conditional effect is wondering about its origin, its cause. It realizes before it was capable to notice the conditions it's in and use these conditions to explain reality, there was an unconditional, there was something before. The most mind-blowing thing about this world is that it didn't start when I started. That's my inner realms started like that, but not the outer realms. That's the most bizarre part. I'm like, what? This place was built, there was a world before I entered, before my eyes opened. You don't understand how to me, this world is too designed, yo. It's too specific. Look at the shape of your hands. Look at how we have eyes that look outward and it's on our face and we can't see our face. That means everybody is living life not seeing their shoulder, being able to see their shoulders, being to see the front of their body. They can't see the back of their body and they can't see their face unless they go and see a mirror. See it through a mirror or something, see the reflection of it. So this life is designed for an original, unconditional force to conditionalize in front of itself. In other words, there is something within all human beings that, how do I tell you? It's like, it's the system admin's mercy. God wills not only how far our eyes open, but how far the eyes of the world opens. If human beings right now, the world leaders, they lead to World War III, they would have wasted this long project. They were the most immature souls in existence. Those souls that lead to the destruction of all of this. That means just because, imagine there's a billiard table and two people are fighting over who gets to shoot first, and then they end up destroying the billiard table or something. In other words, the urgency of this lecture was just to point out that the concepts have a capability to destroy the context, and it is not fair and it is not right for 8.1 billion human beings to, in some sense, be oblivious. The rebellion is, would the species unity happen faster than extinction? That's the strategy. The most advanced on Earth, species unity, it's not only a chapter of the human odyssey. It will happen. You don't understand. The past may have whatever attitude, but the present will walk into the future. Anyways, guys, whatever happens in this realm, even if physically the world gets destroyed, there's no saying non-physically we still don't exist. Maybe there's a non-physical residue or something. From a theological perspective, your soul is reanimated and it meets the system admin. But I'm saying that for all of us here, No way I'm claiming I know everything, I see everything, but I can see as far as this, that if humanity's identity doesn't emerge, the world's going to become a crazy place. If we don't unite, every person will fall in their own world. But the system admin is here. That means, from one angle, actually, I can also see it in this way, that if world war happens, it is God's will. If all of us go extinct, perhaps we didn't deserve our potential. In other words, the title of this lecture was pretty much, don't let a bunch of people, destroy, everything we've all lived for this long. 117 billion humans have contributed to this civilization. 8.1 billion of them are alive now, and 100 of them or less are going to destroy everything. We need the philosophers of all nations. We need the professors on ethics in all nations, to go and talk to their governments. For the first time, we need to check to make sure government is human. That means it has human values or it doesn't. That means people's experience of their governments is the language of their world leader, of their national leader, of their nations, of that part of the world's leader, right? People believe the language, but it's the results that matter. And imagine one day you're going to see a president be elected and they're going to be like, President, why don't you give updates? Why don't you tell everybody what you're doing every day? And the president is like, I've decided to have a silent campaign. My actions are going to speak louder than my words.